Welcome to Boomer Bongo Boulevard. We're in our second season. I'm Mike Just Mike. Along with me is my brother, Ron Just Ron. This is season 2. Oh, my God. Episode 3. I didn't know you joined the WNBA, but hey,
I
way to
got to
go.
think of something to do every time. I mean, you're talking, and I got to do something.
So, anyway, we're going to introduce a little, maybe a mini series here. We're going to do because we like talking about music, and a lot of people, we get a lot of reactions from people, mostly personally, who know us when we do music. And this is going to be the first of 2 albums, 2 stories. We each do 2 albums with a background story that goes along with it, and uh, I think we've got more than 2 albums that we can do a background story on.
Yeah.
Ron.
And believe it or not, we didn't really plan this very well.
Hey, you know what?
We
Before
work
we
better
get
that way.
speaking of not planning it very well, we mash that button. We've got 18 subscribers, and we'd like to have maybe 20. If you could be the 19th, somebody out there could be the 19th, and so just mash that subscribe button because we keep saying that. Every time I say that, somebody mashes it. So maybe it'll keep happening.
Well, you know.
Yeah, we're happy. I like your Monkeys T-shirt.
Oh,
That
thanks.
is a great
I was
T-shirt.
looking at two. I wanted to wear a concert tee, and I don't really have many. I have like 2, and this is one of them. The Monkeys Farewell Tour. I mean, where you can let's see, we can see that a little better.
Oh yeah, that's from.
It's got the 2 that were still
Aquarius.
alive, you know, in the cover there.
Yeah.
Mike and Mickey, but you know, and all the dates on the back. And
Wow.
anyway, the only other one I got is the Kiss tour where they got back, all the 4 original members got back together. I didn't wear it because you couldn't really see what it was, you know.
Well, I was about to say, how could you really tell if they got the original members? They all wear their makeup, so it'd be pretty easy.
You could tell. I mean, you know, you could tell.
Yeah. Real
and plus, it was
fans.
very highly publicized. It was a big deal then. That was 1996. They'd gotten together on the Grammys and all this different stuff. But anyway, yeah, you could tell by looking at them.
Yeah.
If you kind of know the guy, what they look like, even with the makeup, you know, you can tell who they are.
I'm thinking they should do another tour with them and a tribute band. And right off the bat, they go, which one is it tonight? You decide. And then they just.
I like Tiny Kiss, the band, the tribute band that's Little People. They're awesome.
All right, you lead us off. Give us an album and a story.
Okay. This is one of my favorites that I didn't get to talk about last week. Jimmy Buffett, Havana Daydreamer.
Right.
What I like about this one the most is I remember one summer working over at the station, and of course it was real hot. We didn't always go outside and and work. It would be slow, you know.
The service station. Make sure you make that clear.
The service station. Yeah.
Our dad's service
station. That 8-track was around, and there was an 8-track player, and I used to put that 8-track in to the player in the grease rack and listen to it like every day for like a whole summer. And I was like the only one over there. It was just me and Daddy. Randy wasn't over there that summer, but yeah, I would listen to it every day, and I got where I really loved that album. And it also had a song on there that's got to where it meant a lot to me after our dad died, which was, it just made me think about him. It's called The Captain and the Kid. Because he was in the Navy and loved to fish, and he loved being around the water, and just the words to that song just really always kind of paints a picture for me. And hey, a lot of times I can hear it in a certain mood, it'll kind of bring a tear to my eye. It's a great song, and I mean, I love every song on this thing. Woman Going Crazy on Caroline Street, and you get your humor. My head hurts, my feet stink, and I don't love Jesus, which I think we've all felt that way when we were really way, way, way too drunk, like the next morning, which is what the song's about.
My feet have never stunk. Sorry.
Okay, well, you never got close enough to them, I guess.
Oh, well. Well. Now we know where you stand.
And just, it's not a lot of his famous songs, but I like everyone, like Havana Daydream, and some people know that one. But cliches, good ways, mean what you mean and mean what you say. Something so feminine about a mandolin.
It's a great
Kick it
song.
in, second wind. This hotel room, that's a funny one, where he's just basically it's just Jimmy was probably sitting around a hotel room and writing about everything he saw because he, you know,
Right.
writing about the Holy Bible and the TV guide.
True.
Great God Almighty, it's the TV guide. Put in a quarter, turn out the light. Magic fingers makes you feel all right.
Yeah, those electric beds. I don't think those exist anymore. There's got to be
I don't
somebody
think
that
so either.
bought
Probably
one.
in movies.
Yeah. Well, there used to be a thing. Somebody's got one in their house. That
I've never
some.
seen one personally, but
Well, I'm
they
just
seem
thinking.
like that's like the go-to when they have somebody going in a cheap hotel in a movie or a TV show. There's always a little coin box over there.
Right.
They even did that on Cheers with Woody and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
They had the little box with the quarter in it.
And somebody bought one when a hotel or a motel was going out of business, and
Yeah.
they put it at their house. At least one person. That's what I'm thinking. All right, you ready for me to go with one?
You go right ahead.
Here is I've got a CD. Number one, this is from the 21st century. But we had albums, and most of
why
the
not?
yeah, well, most of the attachments I have to albums are things from when I was in college and younger life. When you run in music, it seems like your whole life has a soundtrack to it.
Yeah.
But this, when your kids are little, it has a soundtrack to it as well. And when my oldest two, we've got two real close together, and two children real close together, and I don't want to name them because people already put two and two together too much, and it'll embarrass them. But two children, and they're pretty awesome, and I would take them to the movies all the time. Having kids, great, and grandkids, great excuse to go see cartoons. So we went to see the movie Curious George.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about this one.
And I'm sitting there watching, and it just seemed like Curious George. I've never been into Curious George, still not into Curious George in general. But the kids were enjoying it. And it was colorful. It has that main character, the guy that owns Curious George, has the yellow hat and the yellow suit.
Yeah.
And I don't even know enough about it to know his name. And
He's the man in the big yellow hat. That's all he's ever been.
Yeah, that's all. And I don't care enough about it to go look it up and try to find out who the man in the yellow. But I got into the movie, and what I really got into was the guy who wrote the whole soundtrack, or who at least sang the entire soundtrack, Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
And it's Jack Johnson. It turned out not too far removed from Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
Kind of a guy with a style that was all his own, or is all his own. It doesn't, and it's kind of Caribbean. It's all about the ocean and about the water and about being laid back and just not letting things bother him. But I did something I've never done before or since. As soon as that movie was over, I'm thinking, this soundtrack is going to sell out. And I took the kids, loaded them up. We went to one of those big box stores that I'm not going to name, that has a W that starts with and an AL and a hyphen. I think it's got a hyphen. And we jumped out of the car and we went inside. And sure enough, there was a whole rack of Curious George soundtracks. Yeah. And I bought like two of them because I didn't want to lose it, and I didn't want to wear it out or scratch it up. And just played that thing continuously until I loved every song on it. And he had a couple of hits off of this CD, but I would highly recommend anybody who needs lullaby music for a little kid find this Curious George soundtrack featuring Jack Johnson, and buy it and play it through until you love every song. It won't take you long to play it through. And some of the songs are little kid songs, but they're great. It's kind of like you think you don't like little kid songs until a bunch of little kids start singing the Hokey Pokey. And then you realize you're a pretty big fan of the Hokey Pokey. And the same thing here. with Jack Johnson. So that's my pick. You're next, Ron.
Well, I was going back and forth on which one I want to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and go with this one because it's just got, now there's more to talk about that I can think of right now. And it's one of my favorites. This is the album that made Willie Willie. You know, this is the one that really made him. Redheaded Stranger. It's even got great artwork on the back, too. It's like, you know, sort of the illustration of the story of the Redheaded Stranger. And I've said before that, you know, I like records that, you know, where the songs all fit together, or it's
I
like
like
a
it too,
concept.
Ron.
Oh, I love that album.
Let's hold
I'm looking for that not too long. That's on my looking for list because you know they did a like a re-release of that, and they kind of cut the songs off and replaced them that they considered sexist, I guess. You know, like "Put Love and Love on the Fire," but
right.
You know, I mean, hey, it's a song. Get over it. But anyway, to me, this was one of the, and this had his first really big hit, which is in one of my favorites. Sure, I like it. Well, let's keep talking about that.
My heroes have always been cowboys.
Huh?
My heroes have always been cowboys.
Actually, that's not it. It's
Good-Hearted Woman.
You know, when we meet again up yonder.
Oh yeah.
Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain.
Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain.
Yeah, that's always been my favorite. But you know, and it tells this whole story about the redheaded stranger, you know, and how he became, you know, don't cross him, you know. He's wild in his sorrow. He's riding and hiding his pain, you know. And it tells you all the stuff about what happened to him. But I remember that was the first concert I ever went to. Willie Nelson.
Willie Nelson. Hey,
absolutely.
Has that got Poncho and Lefty on it?
No, that was way later.
Well, I love Poncho and Lefty, but anyway.
This is the one where in the concert where he did this, because I was real excited when he started doing it, because he went through the whole side of that album that tells the whole story. Did it all in a row, you know, and it's all that, you know, in between each song, you know, he do and it's the time of the preacher in the year of '01 and all this stuff, you know, they need to start, you know. But anyway, you know, it's a whole little production. But I remember sitting there and just being entranced listening to that because I'd been looking forward to it the whole concert.
Oh, yeah.
I was hoping he was going to play it. And then when he started doing it, I'm like, yes.
Hey,
you know? Still this day, one of the best concerts I ever went to.
Did he drop the Texas flag before his encore?
He dropped the Texas flag. He dropped the Confederate flag. Ooh.
I know.
And the United States flag.
Well,
I think he did Confederate flag, Texas flag, U.S. flag in that order, I believe.
I saw him years later, and the thing I remember about Willie was number one, it took forever for him to come back out for the encore, and everybody was going, "Well, he's got to do an encore. It's Willie. He's got to do an encore," and they kept the cigarette lighters up, and I mean, it was 40. It wasn't 40 minutes. It was about a half an hour. It seemed like it was probably more like 20 minutes.
He had to chill and, you know, bump that blunt, you know.
Well, it was probably 15 to 20 minutes, and we just stayed there. And finally, Willie comes back out, drops the flag. Willie comes back out. People are saying he hadn't dropped the flag yet, and he dropped the Texas flag, just the Texas flag, and he comes back out and he goes, "Well, now that we gave all the fraternity boys a little chance to leave, we're going to do some real music." And he did about a 30 or 40-minute encore. But, yeah, we got rid of those fraternity boys for sure, the ones that came because it was cool, you know, not because they really wanted to hear Willie, but because it was cool. And you got the cool, doing things because it was cool crowd out, you know, the worthless crowd out, and got everybody else in. That's when we had a good time.
Well, interesting story. My wife and I were talking about Willie. We were listening to some Willie Nelson and got talking about him. And I got talking about that concert. And she was like, "What year was that?" And I was talking about being 1980. So that's when Willie was, man, the top of the world.
Yeah.
You know, he had Honeysuckle Rose. He'd been in the Electric Horseman. He was doing all kind of movies and hits everywhere on the pop chart, on the country chart. He was everywhere. And she was like, "Man, that's the same one I was at." And I was like, you know, she was at the same concert. So
You just didn't know
yeah,
her.
somewhere I just didn't know her. Yeah,
Maybe even said "excuse me" to her as you walked by. Excuse me.
who knows? She probably just said, "Get out of my way, kid."
Oh, she would never do that. Well, she might. She might. All right. Ready for mine?
Sure,
Okay. This, I'm sorry, I got a little number on this
that's all
from
right.
long ago, but Rod Stewart Unplugged
Oh, nice.
from the MTV back when they used to do
I
music
used
on
to love
MTV.
that show.
Yeah,
In
the
fact,
Unplugged series.
I've got the Nirvana Unplugged CD, which
Ah,
is great as well.
well, the Paul McCartney is great.
Oh hell yeah, he
They're
had one of the better shows I've ever
oh,
seen.
they
Ten
were.
Thousand Maniacs. There was a lot of great ones.
Why don't they bring that show back?
I don't
It's
know.
so great. Of course, for anybody who doesn't know, I think most people listening know. But if you don't know, MTV, somebody had the brilliant idea of bringing these established artists in and having them do all their songs or a lot of their hit songs or whatever, anything else they wanted to sing in a live concert,
Mm-hmm.
but not plugged in, acoustic guitars and microphones in front of them,
Yeah.
and these artists, and he just gave a great, unique spin on all these hit songs. And weirdly enough, and he's not one of my favorites. Boy, I sure don't hate him.
Yeah.
But the one I enjoyed the most out of all of them, for some reason, was Rod Stewart
Yeah.
Unplugged. And I think maybe one thing I like about Rod Stewart is he managed to keep a raspy voice for years without losing it,
Yeah.
without losing the voice.
He's
And
still out going on tour. I was hearing a promo for him the other day.
oh,
Yeah.
he's one of those guys, and there's quite a few that fall into this
Yeah.
category. Mick Jagger is another who was an athlete when he was younger, a very studious athlete who worked out and was in very good shape far into their late youth.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about competitive shape. Rod Stewart loved playing soccer, as did Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger's father was one of the most well-known soccer coaches in England. He used to have a television show, and when Mick was young, like a kid, he would be on it demonstrating things his dad talked about. And Rod Stewart was a big soccer player. I don't think professional level, but a great soccer player. And they stayed in really good shape, and they're still in really great shape all these years later. So really admirable there too. But it's just a great album, and it's got not all his hits, but it's got a lot of. I mean, can you imagine Hot Legs Unplugged?
Yeah.
It's a totally different song.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of things that are like that and sometimes they're better.
Oh yeah, it's certainly different. But the original artist, they're going to put a great spin on it that maybe somebody doing a cover won't do. And the one I like and really like on there is Maggie May.
Yeah.
And that's predictable, I suppose. But such a great song anyway. Maybe one of the top 5 songs I've ever heard in my life, and just well sung, but a spin on it you've never heard before if you've never heard the unplugged version. But Ron, they should bring that back. Somebody should bring that back.
Now that I think about it, I was talking about going to see Kiss, and I just remembered as you were talking about Unplugged, there was Kiss's Unplugged appearance was the impetus for them to get back together because they had one little part in the show. Of course, they had the bank. Of course, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley have always been in Kiss. Right. They've had a couple other different guys at different times that were there for a long time. But anyway, they had the 4 guys that they were currently playing with, and they were playing the MTV Unplugged. And then they decided, like right near the show, they brought out Ace Frehley and Peter Criss. They brought them out. And so all of them, there was like 6 of them out there playing, and they played Hard Luck Woman together. And it sounded great. And everybody was like, all, kind of joking around, jacking around. And I remember reading after that came on that they all kind of were like, hey, here's what we need to do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And the thing I always liked about it was it seemed to really inspire the bands or the singers, or everybody was inspired by it. Just like you were just describing. And you don't see that very much. You see a lot of performances where, and we've all seen a lot of performances because you can get on YouTube and find so
Yeah.
many, and so many of them are uninspired. They're just going through the motions. They're just moving their lips to the song, and none of the unplugged performances that
Yeah.
I ever saw seemed like that, and it was
Oh,
just
one of
a
the most
pleasure to
amazing
watch.
performances I ever saw was on that show. It was, hang on a second. When 10,000 Maniacs was on there, and Natalie Merchant, who's a great, great singer,
Oh, sure.
and she did a cover of Patti Smith's "Because the Night,"
Oh, wow, great idea.
and and it
I think I
was,
missed that.
oh yeah, it had like full strings behind it and everything.
Yeah,
And man, you ought to look it up on YouTube.
I will. I will definitely
10,000
do that.
Maniacs, Because the Night, from Unplugged. It is freaking incredible. She had a big hit with it too. They released it as a single.
Hey, Ron, I think we're going to wrap it up here. That's a good place to stop, but I think we're going to do a few of these where we each bring two albums in or two recordings in and tell the stories, our individual stories that go along behind it and things we've read about it and heard about it, because that's what people do when they sit around and talk about music. And I think that's what we're going to do for a while. Once again, this is Boomer Bongo Boulevard. Mash that button and subscribe. I think you'll find it's fun to turn on in the background and maybe go over to your turntable later or to your computer and look up some of these songs that we mentioned if you haven't heard them before.
Suggestions.
What?
I said, pick up on a few suggestions. I mean, I do that all the time.
It's a great way to spend an evening, and maybe we'll inspire you to have an evening like that. Anyway, Ron, I'm Mike, just Mike. This is Ron, just Ron. Mash that button, and you've been listening to Boomer Bongo Boulevard. We're in our second season.